I'm excited to have Jay Curry back. He is the Senior Talent Acquisition Manager at Serenova, and it was a California company. He was actually a contractor out there, and came here and has really done wonders with the whole talent acquisition team to turn it into a more scalable platform. He's implemented an ATS system, a referral platform. He's developed the talent branding, sourcing, and interview process to help build the organization. So he is highly qualified to speak on this subject. And he's when I ask him, he's married to Andrea, and they've got a 3-year-old, almost a
1 and a 3.
A 1 and a 3.
Yeah, so we're busy.
So that's exciting. And so Jay, why don't you come share with us this morning?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Can everybody hear me okay? Everybody ready for the big winter storm tomorrow? So I was dropping dry cleaning off this morning, and the lady that works in the dry cleaning, she's from North Dakota, and she's still baffled at, if there's even mention of sleet or snow or ice on the roads, that we begin this shutdown. And I showed her a picture. There was a meme on Facebook one time. It was like Austin, Texas salt crew, road crew, the winter storm crew. And it was like a truck with a bag of salt on the back of it. And I was like, yeah, that's literally all we have. So this morning, look, there's a ton of information that we can cover here, and I want to keep this as interactive as possible. I don't believe in just like giving you a ton of information that may or may not be useful. So I want you to kind of guide the presentation. We may or may not get through all of it because it's more about your questions and what you want to know. I've got a lot of useful information that I can share with you, and we'll kind of just keep track like that. But Mark's is going to help us with questions during, and he's right here in the back, between things. We're going to talk about personal branding. We're going to talk about ATS systems, LinkedIn, applying for jobs. And each one of those, I'll kind of break and it's a small group. So look, we can ask questions. We can talk a little bit about, some of the other things that might be on your mind or on your heart. So, thanks again. And a little about me, like Craig said, background. I've been in talent acquisition for, I guess, going on 12 years now professionally. Before then, I was in retail management, and I just built teams from there. So what I really enjoy doing is finding the right people for an organization to kind of make it go. I believe it's about a team and doing those things together, and finding people a good part of that team. So without further ado, we'll start. So we'll talk about personal branding first. And I have some notes over here, so if I refer back, forgive me. But I do want to kind of start out just talking a little bit about how to get networked, how to get branded, and how to get noticed, right? First, there we go. You got to build a platform. Choose a platform. A lot of people go out. Websites are cheap nowadays, right? So you go on, you pay $2.99 for a hosted website. It's got some free stuff that you can build your website. It's very simple. That can be your platform. You can use LinkedIn as your platform. You can use anything that you want to that's online as your platform, but I suggest just getting a cheap website. It's easy to store your resume on. It's easy to store a lot of these different things on that you can actually refer back. And you'll start to push out content from that website, and I'll show you a little bit more about that as we kind of go on through there. So some of the places you can go, GoDaddy, there's a ton of them out there. Just I promise if you put in Google, hey, personal website, there's going to be a list of them come up. Very, very affordable nowadays. Secondly, identify your uniqueness and your strengths. So you guys work with job coaches here, right? Have you guys been through an exercise to where you find out where your strengths are, how you're unique, and how to apply that to somewhere? Right? Show of hands. So everybody's kind of been through that exercise. Very important. The reason why is because you're not going to find a really good job until you figure out what makes you tick in here. 9 times out of 10 in an interview process, I like to ask the question is like, what are your strengths? And I know that's a pretty subjective question, but but I follow it up with what are you really strong at? And folks always have one. They have one like thing that they're like their go-to, but we have many strengths. People will tell you all the time, hey, you're really really good at this, and that's great. But you know, at the end of the day, you have several other strengths that are around that make you a full person. So it's going to help you own your space. Look, if you're in tech, if you're in real estate, if you're in supply chain management, whatever it is, own your space. Know that you've got an idea and you've got knowledge within that space that is helpful and can be applied to another, to a job or someone else's, to help someone else, that is valuable. So if you own it, you're going to start to formulate kind of a persona, and we'll talk a little bit more as we go. Share your knowledge. That's one of the big things here is we're going to want to share our knowledge is, hey, I'm an expert in supply chain management. That's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out, scour the internet for content. We're going to start to formulate some of our own content, and we're going to share it. And I'm going to talk about platforms, how to share that. Next slide. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then be yourself. And this is not the final one, but be yourself. Don't take on another person. If you continue to think of yourself as a job seeker, that's what you'll be. Okay. While you're a job seeker right now, totally understand. Been there myself. And I'll share a story before I leave today that maybe will encourage some of you. Think like an expert. Act as if. I was told that early on in my career by a mentor, and today it still resonates with me. Act as if. Act as if. You know a lot of stuff. You've actually, you've put a lot of time and effort into your craft. So make sure that you're acting as if you're an expert in that. And finally, identify your values and set your priorities. So another really cool exercise to go through is like, hey, what are you looking for in a company, right? This is as much an interview for the next company that you're going to work for as it is for you. So understand where your values lie and what your priorities are and how you want to accomplish those via a job. And craft your personal brand and persona. This is where it all comes together. On top of being yourself, on top of identifying your values and your priorities, your uniqueness and strengths, we're going to craft this persona, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to craft it, and we're going to put it into an online form, right? So if it's a website, which I suggest, we're going to start to put content around that. We're going to start to look at things that are going to make knowledge is actually going to make you, that's going to make it shareable. That's where you can push out content to other websites and start to build a brand. It's pretty cool how this actually comes along, and I'll kind of give you some action items and tools to use. So self-serve, look, this can be, and there's two models. There's self-serve and there's full service. Self-service, look, it's tough. You got to stay on top of it. You have to schedule time into it, and once you get it down and you start to recognize that it's something worth putting time into, you do that. Post regular long-term content on LinkedIn relevant to your space. How many do that right now? Not enough. Okay, so doesn't have to be your content, right? If you want to recognize, and this is a great way to network with people, scour the internet, become an expert, act as if, right? Go out, find those tips, supply chain management, real estate, technology, whatever it is, share that content, tag that person, and guess what? You've got a person that already likes you because they're sharing your content. So you don't have to build it right off the bat, but it's good to have 4 or 5 pieces of content that you can rotate out. There we go. Participate in Twitter, LinkedIn chats relevant to your space, or start your own. How many do that? Not enough. Not enough. Look, LinkedIn groups. How about that? How many people are in LinkedIn groups? Okay, so there's your key, right? So you've got a group of people that are like-minded, that are in the same industry, same space, same vertical that you can actually talk with, right? So what's so arduous about maybe asking a question and starting a discussion? What that does, it creates something. It's not, it's not this obvious self-branding thing that you go through. It's that you have a question, you have a discussion, or what do you think about X? What do you think about, using X to solve Y? Start to participate in those, get to know people, make new friends, you'll get a job. Create a standalone personal website that outlines you and your talents and expertise. So we talked about that earlier, very simple. There's some examples out there. Google's going to be your best friend on that. Look, it depends on who you are. If you're a creative, it's going to be ultra creative, right? If you're a supply chain management, expert, it's going to look like supply chain management. If it's tech, it's going to be talking about tech. So what you do is you go out with that in mind and say, hey, this is exactly how it needs to look. This is how I want to format it, and this is how much I have budgeted for it. And I think this is the last one. Blog and create a newsletter to send it out to people you already networked with. How many write blogs? Just one? Really? Done it before? It's not enough. So look, in your downtime, and look, there is a big portion here of how you're going to share information in your life story, where you're at, by not really just saying it, right? In your blog, name a blog. Hey, while I'm unemployed, doing something to that, to where it's creative. It keeps your mind fresh. It's relevant to your space. You can post it to discussions in your groups in LinkedIn. All this stuff ties back to knowing, hey, maybe there's somebody out there that is in need of your services and just doesn't know it yet. So blog is a simple short form. Have 4 or 5 pieces of content that you can rotate through. Happens to be very simple nowadays. There's Twitter, there's LinkedIn, Facebook's kind of the iffy part on a job, but there's a ton of others. Stack Overflow if you're in tech, different things like that. Full service. I've looked into these, and so they're becoming more and more prevalent nowadays. They're personal branding companies. Like I said earlier, self-serve, it becomes a bit of a big task, especially if you're employed in a 50 to 60 hour a week job. You do have to carve out time for it, and it's one of those things that you constantly have to keep up with. Brand ID, delightful communications, and fast company, all are full service. These folks will walk you through and ask you the questions of like, hey, what space are you in? How does this need to look? What are your goals? And all of those things are things that you need to do before you actually go into this next step. So working with career coaches here and the things that these guys do at Job Seekers Network is wonderful, because it can prepare you for those types of things that, hey, you contact Brand ID, here's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get a job. I want it in this space. So they're going to tailor all that stuff to it. It's not cheap, but it's there. Fiverr is a different kind of, it's kind of a la carte. So you can go and pick what they do. So if you have time for some of it, I recommend taking the other portion of it and giving it to Fiverr. So if it's ad content, if it's blog content, if it's website building, whatever it is, Fiverr, it's kind of a crowdsourcing model that is ultra affordable. You can go out, you can get a logo for almost bottom dollar, and you can do whatever, and they'll be able to help you kind of curate that content and push it out to the channels that actually matter for you. Let's see. So the goals here are very simple. Opportunity finds you. How many would like that right now? Everybody in the room, right? Opportunity finds you. That's kind of the pinnacle, is you're never without a job. And the reason why you're never without a job is because people are wanting to hire you while you're in your job. So if you're getting constant calls, if you're getting, those types of things, it means you're branded well and you're networked well, which are huge things in this small little town we call Austin, right? Still a very small town, still a very, handshake town, still an original town. You have an opportunity right now, it's blowing up. So 10 years from now, I can't say that it'll be the same way. So know your folks around here. If you're new, welcome. Online networking power. So look, here, let's see, I had an example We had a gentleman named Gus from one of it was Job Seekers Network's actual. It was the event that they held at Accruent, and Gus just come up to shake my hand. Really, that's all. And I remembered Gus just vaguely. I didn't remember what he did, but I remembered Gus. Hey, he came up. He was like, "Hey, I just wanted to meet you real quick. We have some people in common on LinkedIn. How you doing?" And then he just kind of off to the side. Gus followed up with an email. Hey, so I'm networked with your chief human resources officer for our private equity firm, Renee Barrera. We actually are really good friends. Do you mind if you and I meet and just kind of talk? Absolutely. So we did, right? Gus noticed also that we were in need of a training manager. Gus happened to be a training manager. So Gus worked this whole circle all the way back, and it started with a handshake, right? And then it went all the way through his connections. Got me interested in his profile, got me interested in digging in more on Gus, and then Gus became the top candidate, and we went out and Gus negotiated a really good salary with us. So I was super proud of that, and yeah, it was awesome. So it just shows you the power, and still in a small town like this is you have 3 or 4 people that are referenceable right around you, and they're like connected, and you see kind of the connection and how you can work. We'll talk about ATS in a minute. You don't want to be in the ATS. You don't want to be the premier candidate before the job even opens. In-person networking power. So when you walk into a room or a networking event like this, or if you're out at a job fair or another job fair, you want to look. If you've got a good personal brand, you're stepping into something like, hey, I know that guy. I've seen his stuff in LinkedIn groups and discussions. I want to go meet him. There's also employers there. There's people there that are keeping eyes on stuff. I'm subscribed to a couple of groups, and I think the max is 50 on LinkedIn. So it's kind of hard to keep up with 50, but I'm a recruiter, so 50 helps me. So if I want to get into another group, I can actually do that. But just be cautious, only know what you can manage and spend your time on. Build your business. If God's calling for you is in your downtime to start to think outside of corporate employment, it was for me. Build a business. Start a business. Start as a consultant. Start as a contractor. I did that. I've got a personal story about that, and I'd love to share that with anyone that would be willing to listen. Get hired. Everybody wants to get hired. The last one, make new friends. So nowadays we're in this era of online friends, right? How many friends do you have? Hey, I've got 500 followers. I got 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. Let's not call them true friends, but they're a circle of people that know you based on the content that you're sharing. So it's curated content. They don't know you, but they know you, right? So that all ties back to your personal brand, and that's how they're going to understand and know you, right? So it has to be curated properly, has to be kind of nourished properly, and whatever you put out there is how people are going to know you. Last one is really cool. Serendipitous success. It's getting lucky, right? Right place, right time, right? A little bit of Gus's story, a little bit of my story, a little bit about everybody's story. Right place, right time. Any questions on personal branding? Love to just short questions, anything like that I can help just kind of steer a person or people in the right direction. None? Go.
You mentioned, and you threw out a number, 500 and 5,000. Those may have been optimistic, I don't know, but I personally feel, thank you, I personally feel like I would like to know how to expand my network of friends and acquaintances that would help that job seeking to meet my goals process. And I feel like I'm too self-contained and need to reach out.
I think most of us are, honestly.
And so the question is how to do that without seeming like hey, look, I'm looking for a job. How are you doing, Bob?
Well, you're not looking for a job. You're looking for friends, right?
Well,
that's the first step right there.
Yeah.
Is take out being a job seeker and get that kind of out of your head. You are a job seeker part-time in the back of your mind. You're looking for a job, but in reality, you're looking to network with people, right? And if you go out, it's so funny. If you ever, and you've been in a situation where you're like, I want to go talk to this person, but I don't want to go talk to them because I need something from them. I don't want that to come off that way. Well, it does. It really comes off the way. It's like if you talk to a certain person and you have it in your head that the only thing that you want from that person is what they can provide you, guess what? It comes off that way. Yeah. Same thing with networking, right? Go out, find people. I mean, look, there's networking events to where you can meet people personally. If you're good in person, take advantage of it. If you're better online and you have a pretty good brand, use that. LinkedIn is a great tool. I mean, it's changing and things are going to be different here, but right now find like-minded people, not because you need them, but because you want them. It's the best advice I can give you on that. Does that kind of answer your question a little bit? It's all about a mindset.
Yeah, when you present yourself, you're thinking about what I can do for you versus vice versa.
Bingo. It works out every time. Is that it? She's got one back here.
Okay, I have a question. I am thinking about changing careers.
Awesome.
My previous career was in the mortgage industry,
Okay.
and now I'm wanting to do something that gives back more to the community, that helps more.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience for what I'm wanting to do going forward is more based on my volunteer experience.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice do you have for me as far as networking goes?
Well, highlight your volunteer experience, and begin to craft things that are going to let people know that, hey, your next step in your career is to change careers and to give back to the community more than you are taking. Right? I think with your volunteer circle and just a little bit outside of that, find those folks that are leaders in that volunteering space or in that particular vertical. Connect with them, start to look at some of their thoughts, follow them on several different, if it's Twitter, if it's Facebook, if it's something different, follow them, start to get a better understanding, look at who else is following them, and start to insert yourself into that circle. And especially in something like that, people are more willing to help. And I don't know if you're talking about nonprofit or volunteering pro bono or whatever it is, but the more you insert yourself into the kind of the industry leaders or the vertical leaders or people that have pioneered some things in that area, the better off you are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Got another one back here. Whoops, sorry. Go ahead.
So my question is, in the vast majority as we go through social media is becoming the number one place for a lot of business growing. It's kind of trends are going there.
Right.
So for moving forward with like growing brand, growing business, otherwise, what are like your top 5 things that you would recommend for platforms to move forward with?
Personal website for sure, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it just kind of varies from there what vertical you're in. If you're in tech, it's Stack Overflow. You want to participate in GitHub. If you're a creative, it's wherever you can store online content there and be able to showcase it. I would say the top 2, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then I would say whatever kind of your vertical goes. So there's vertical specifics.
Yeah. So I'm in sales, and I have several.
What do you sell?
Personally, I have my own business with Cutco.
Okay.
So I have over 100 different customers
Right.
as well. I service them, and I go travel and do stuff.
Right.
I'm going off to the side and doing other business right now. That's something I want to go back to.
Right.
I have my own website for that. Then I have all my other emails and stuff I send out for my
For your business, right? So that's your business.
Yeah, business there. I don't have my own personal one. I have business-wise, so I have everyone else's email. I could send out different content through that website for Cutco or for myself, but I don't have my own personal one specifically, as well as different social media. I do not have a Twitter, so that would be one that I would
Get all of it. I mean, look, I didn't have a Twitter till about 5 years ago. Wasn't something that I like to keep up with. Now I don't even keep up with it, but I push content, right? I find it. So there's a ton of different ways. Go back, just kind of what I was referencing. Start to build your personal brand, not your business brand. If you're wanting to get out of that. And by the way, we did hire somebody, a territory manager, just because they had Cutco in their background, because I know how that is a true relationship building, brand building business. So here's what I'd love to do. I'd love to help you. And I'll pass out some cards later. If you'll come see me, I'll pass out a card. I'll be able to help you a little bit, kind of get started, because I know the separation, and I've been through it myself.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I was a part of the FSM CSP events team, so I traveled the state doing different shows and events, home and garden shows. I was one of the top producers as far as sales. And then the end of the year came and certain personal funds, and so that's kind of why I'm pulling off to the side. And then
You want to spread your talents, man. You want to be able to spread the thing. But yeah, love to help you, man.
Thank you.
Instagram, look, that's another one. I mean, it depends on your vertical. It's like Instagram for me is not probably one of the best ones, but for you it may be, right? If you're a real estate agent, yeah, no, Instagram, yeah. If it's sales, that's a great recommendation, actually. Instagram. Okay. There you go. Follow them. Yeah, find out who follows them, and go from there. We'll kind of move along. This is applicant tracking systems, ATS. I know you guys think it's like some big mystery, but it's not. It's really just a CRM that's built for you, and it's built for me, and it's built for hiring managers. So we'll go over a few other things that kind of help you navigate and understand, just to kind of remove the veil a little bit. They're not perfect. They're software at the end of the day. It doesn't do a good job of letting us know when to follow up with you, and it doesn't give you enough information about where you are in the job process. That's just where we are in ATS today. They've come a long way in the last 10 years, so they've started to build. It's not just one of these tools that are out there and they, you apply and you may get contacted. It's actually a nurturing tool also. Think SEO, Boolean, and keywords. So when I go into my ATS, or I have one of my recruiters do a search, guess what we're searching for? Keywords. So folks, when you're building a resume, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when applying, is you have to know what keywords are working in the industry. If not, you've got to search and kind of figure it out. It's a little bit of research, but it's transformable. You're going to have one malleable type of resume that is going to apply, just moving things around. So you have to understand the way we search for things. When I go in and I'm searching for a software engineer, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to type in 3 languages that I know that this person must understand before they become a software engineer here at Serenova. And those are going to be my knockouts. The rest of them I don't even see. So make sure that you understand the job description, what they're calling for, and if you have experience with it, be sure that keyword's in there. If not, you're not going to make the first pass. That's how most people get cut out. Literally filter hundreds of applicants that way. Go ahead.
How do you stop it becoming very generic? If everybody else likes the same keywords, how do you?
It's not even about being generic. It's about playing this SEO game. I mean, that's.
Understood, but a big part of this is, everyone's using the same vocabulary, and
right.
It becomes increasingly generic.
No, it does. I mean, keywords are never going to be generic unless they're applicable. So, if you're applying a keyword that you have experience with, say you're a software developer and I'm looking for an ASP.NET developer, and you have experience, 5 to 6 years of experience with ASP.NET, it's okay to use that keyword, right? Because I'm looking for people in the applicant pool. Believe it or not, about 30% of the applicant pool, they don't apply to they apply to the job, and they don't have anything that actually lends itself. They don't have any experience with it. So our battle on the other side is trying to figure out where best to spend our time, because our teams are small and we have a huge amount. So don't be generic. Look, there's a ton of things you can do in a resume to be not generic, but there are like those keywords. They're important. It's the SEO game. That's it.
Yeah, I've played it every which way, and a lot of sometimes when you're trying to find keywords, it works against your own personal branding, where you select very differentiated, positioning words to actually, lift yourself and above the fray.
Right. Are you talking about when applying?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go over that here in just a bit, and I'll kind of give you a little bit of a tip and some more tricks to
Okay.
actually kind of help you. And again, I'm able to help as
Okay,
much as
thanks.
I can.
Thank you.
Remember, I have a 1 and 3-year-old, so if I don't respond like instantly, it's not because I don't like you. It's because I have a 1 and 3-year-old. So,
Okay. Thanks.
yes, sir. Search engine optimization. So it's just like Google. They stack rank things based on page views and keywords, right? So it's the same thing with an ATS and most other things that are searchable.
Just to follow up, I'm similarly frustrated with the SEO game, and as someone who hired a lot of people,
Yeah.
what will happen is if we do, at least in our case, when we picked you out of the lineup,
Right.
we drilled down on
Right.
the fact that you said you had experience in
It's
XYZ,
coming up. Yeah.
and they flush out really fast.
They do.
It's frustrating as a hiring manager because I feel like you duped me, but from their point of view, they got an interview.
That's right.
So that's the game part, and I don't know that there's any way around it.
No, I mean there's not, but I mean here's the thing: whose time are you wasting? Yourselves, right? You're wasting your time. If
You don't look good.
right? You don't look good at the end of the day. It's negative networking, and it's the old adage: if you make somebody mad, they're going to tell 10 people that you made them mad. If you make someone really happy, they might tell somebody else. So don't go the other way by doing that. Another question about an ATS right behind you.
When you say search, do you search for the applicants that have applied for a particular posting, or do you search your entire applicant pool?
So that's a good question. So if it's a posting and I have 140 applicants on that posting, yeah, I search that within that 140 applicants. Also, I have my sourcer in the background searching a database of 40,000 people that had applied before. So not only do they matter here in your application, but they're going to matter for historical search purposes as well. So it has to be done well, and you have to put some thought into it, because that job is likely not going to change too much. A software developer at Serenova is going to use the same languages because that's what our platform's built on, right? Same with anything else. So I would say that not only it's just for the application, but historical search purposes, which is mentioned later in this deck as well.
So what do you think about people who send resumes with a keyword section in it?
Love it. Absolutely. I mean, because here's the thing: it shows up well. I'm able to search it, and it's malleable. So it's something that you can do, and really kind of help yourself, kind of in the search game. I mean, it is, and I can talk about that a little bit more later in the presentation. But I want to get to another question real quick. Go ahead.
What do you think is better as far as acronyms versus actually writing everything out?
Just depends on what it is. What are you speaking about?
I'm taking a PMP class right now.
Okay.
Do I want to put Project Manager Program
PMP.
certificate?
PMP.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody knows what a PMP is, so that would be one. So if you're in tech and you're a database guy, you're a software developer, you're whatever, all of those acronyms are acronyms for a reason. They're industry standard, right? When you get into more specific things, more specific like if it's real estate and it's not a widely used acronym, you better watch out. You may want to use the entire, in your string, in your resume, you may want to use the entire word and then acronym it in parentheses, because the ATS will still scan that and recognize it.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on. I'll have some more time maybe at the end of the presentation for questions on that. The ATS, they're designed for applicant and users in mind. So they're designed for me, they're designed for you, and that's why we still have this weird piece of software that isn't perfect. So we're trying to make two people happy. And much to the point, it's a database, so historical search properties are of high value. It's what I mentioned to this gentleman over here earlier, is get it right the first time you're in a database, you're searchable from that point on, right? And lastly, look for technology video like AI, natural language processing, and machine learning to show up in ATS systems over the next 5 years. I'm already experimenting with some of it. A lot of it's in interactive tools that help us get down to the best applicant to turn them into a candidate. Let's see. They're just not as complicated as everyone thinks. There you go. Write a chronological resume with standard format that includes like a heading, a title, summary, accomplishments, education, and certifications. That's something to do. And I believe they train you guys to do that here. Highlight your experience in the title. That's very important because it's one of the first things that an ATS will look at in a search. Include the summary or phrases, keywords, just like I had mentioned earlier, that describes your position, the position that you want, and some of the things that you have experience with. Include company names, locations, jobs, things like that. Help the recruiter make the decision to call you. Save your resume in a Word format. I'm telling you, man, PDF, all the other formats out there. The ATS ingests it and it makes it into its own format. Here's where it's taking your resume, putting it in a format that we can read and scan quickly. And if you got it in any other format, sometimes it doesn't even show up or it's jumbled. What not to do, which is probably the most important here. Wait, sorry. Be sure to, your LinkedIn profile needs to match your resume as well. I think they also train you here to do that. What not to do, don't try to edit your resume down to 1 page. That's silly. 3 pages is probably enough. 10 years in a career is fine, okay? 1 page, it doesn't tell you enough, really. It really leaves out a lot of stuff. So 3's fine. List keywords you don't have experience with. Don't do that. As this gentleman said over here, it looks really bad in interviews. Like, hey, tell me about your ASP.NET experience. Well, I haven't really used it, but I've played around with it. Well, we wasted a whole bunch of time here. Include tables or graphs or anything like that on your resume. The reason why is, like I said, the ATS ingests your resume. It puts it in a format to where recruiters, sourcers, and folks like me can actually read and scan through it quickly. That doesn't mean tables or graphs. What it does, it tries to chunk those out and it jumbles the rest of your resume. So if you have them on your resume, take them off. Those are for your online website. Those are for, you can put a link to your website and display those tables and graphs if you like. Don't write a creative form resume just for the reasons I said above. It just doesn't look good in the ATS. And don't include a picture of yourself. Don't expect one resume to work for every job. Have a functional resume that is kind of a malleable piece of work, right? Have an outline, stick to the outline. Whatever it needs to be highlighted, highlight it for that particular job. Looking for a job is no small task. There's a lot of things you have to do and don't do. Include cover letters. Look, it's time to stop writing cover letters. In the last 6 years, I have not read a cover letter at all. It is literally, I think, one of the biggest waste of time that you can do. There are companies out there that require you to write a cover letter to be an applicant or a candidate. You might not want to work for that company. But if you know that, sure, include a cover letter. But for all intents and purposes, they're not something I look at, my team looks at. My circle of folks my mentors, my folks that do the same thing that I do, they don't read them. I don't know why. But I don't know if it's a piece of information or we just tend to skip over it, but it's become a thing now. So sorry about that. If you've been writing cover letters. If they do ask for one, look.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just curious, when the applicant tracking system asks, you can upload your cover letter here, kind of feel obligated to do that?
Well, if it's asking for one and it says, hey, cover letter required, then yeah, you better insert your cover letter. But if it's asking for one and you feel like you need to check the box, honestly, nobody looks at it. I don't. My hiring managers don't. I mean, I have 32 hiring managers, and none of them are like, based on the cover letter, we need to get this guy in here or this gal in here.
Yeah, now, you hit on something about resume versions. So obviously, you want to customize your resume
Sure.
for the job that you're applying for. But when it comes to naming conventions, what do you recommend for people who have multiple versions? You don't just want to put like version 1, version 2, version 3.
No, because that shows up.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, this guy's got
Do you
19
wanna put
versions
the
of his
date, you just put
resume.
their name in the date, or I mean, how would you-
Honestly, 2 versions I would say is plenty because you're in a functional state in both of them. If you're applying or maybe doing a career change, maybe you're like, hey, I'm applying to my vertical and then I'm applying to this other vertical. It takes a little bit of work, right? It's like you go apply for the job, you understand the job description, you're going to make changes within one of these resumes. You don't need 4. You don't. And look, I've been in the situation too to where I had like 18 different, versions of my resume, and then I figured out, I wish I had mentioned the article, but it was like how to just, 5-minute edit your resume to be able to be a good applicant within a job description. So it's tricky, but it's like editing your resume down to 1 page. You don't really want to limit yourself, but you do want to make sure that you get all the information. So it may take some copying, pasting, and that's what they recommend in this, is like dropping things in, historical things that you don't have to type. You just copy and paste, you arrange it, and you apply. Moving on, LinkedIn. So we have 6 minutes, right, Craig? All right, sorry. So make the most out of LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great tool, man, and we've been using it for a while as a society. We've adapted to making this persona on LinkedIn, and now it's a thing. So we have to put some time into it. Add your skills. That's pretty important because when I'm running a search in LinkedIn, much like an ATS, I'm keyword searching. LinkedIn is just like an ATS. ATS is just like a LinkedIn. It is SEO optimized, which means I type in keywords, I find it listed in your skills, or LinkedIn finds it listed in your skills. It pulls you up. I'm reaching out to you for a job, right? Get endorsed for your skills. I don't know how popular that is today, but it's helping. It's helping. Just endorse each other, make new friends. Check out who's viewed your profile. How many people do that? How many get an email saying you had 20 views last week? What do you connect with those folks right after that? Yep, that's what you do. Is you connect with those folks right after that. Don't reach out to them. I would probably wait till they reached out to you, but make sure that they're a connection, because sometimes people are just looking at your profile. I do it all the time, and in fact, I spend half my day on LinkedIn. So it's not necessarily that I might need something from you or I want to talk to you. It's just that I want to look at your profile, right? But I do get hundreds of emails back that are like, "Hey, I saw that you viewed my profile. It's public." So yeah, I did. Search engine optimize your LinkedIn profile. Same as your resume. And here's the thing. LinkedIn, the way that we search LinkedIn isn't always like you think we search it. We're not always in LinkedIn to search LinkedIn. Sometimes I'm on Google to search LinkedIn because Google has a better search experience, and it searches LinkedIn for me. So understand that your keywords in your resume and in your LinkedIn profile are super important, because that's what people are looking for. That's like the very baseline of what they're looking for. It is qualifications. Incorporate your blog, website links into your LinkedIn profile. Everything that we talked about in personal branding, you can link and hyperlink into your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn has places where you can share videos, where you can share content, where you can share, the groups that you're in, all of that good stuff. Other people's content. You can share other people's content. I am famous for doing that. Why? Because they're just a lot smarter than I am. That's the end of it, is like they know what they're doing, right? So I'm going to share their content. If it's call center tech, if it's tech, if it's real estate, we want to make sure that we find people that have good content and that we're tagging them on LinkedIn, making friends and followers with their circles, and we're just expanding our network. We're just expanding our network that way. Join groups. We talked about that. Experiment with publishing content on LinkedIn's publishing platform. Those emails, blogs, different things, the newsletters that I talked about earlier, perfect place for that. Long form content. It's a big task, but I promise if you sit down, spend 2 to 4 hours writing 4 to 5 pieces of content that you can switch out on a monthly basis, you've got the year covered. Nobody's going to know that you're posting the same content. There's nobody sitting on there waiting on, oh, what's Joji going to post today? Or they're not going to notice that. There's a question back here. Sure. Yep. Yep. You share the link. You share the link, and what it does, it posts, and it keeps up to date with that particular link. That link changes on your personal website, so it's going to post your most recent content. Add the LinkedIn share buttons to your website. So you're not going to get a lot of traffic to your website, compared to your LinkedIn profile, but you want to vice versa that. So if somebody's on your blog, say you share your hyperlink, somebody's on your blog, they want to connect with you on LinkedIn, have the button there for them to do that. Make everything interconnected. It's the best way to do it. Looks like I've got 2 minutes left, right? All right, so we're rolling on 7 more minutes. How about that? So your personality and your profile, but don't go overboard. This is a business. It's a business like social media platform. Definitely show your profile. If you go to my profile, you're going to know I'm a Christian, but it's not blasted all over it because I'm not a preacher. I'm a technical recruiter at heart. I manage technical recruiting teams and sourcers, right? But be who you are, right? Make sure that, for a personality, if I can glean a little bit of personality from someone's LinkedIn page, that just helps me make the decision. So make the decision easier for the recruiter, okay? Optimize your profile for human readability, just like your resume. If your resume and your LinkedIn profile look the same, you get a 100 and a gold star because because 9 times out of 10 your resume pops up in my ATS because you applied for a job. My next step is to hit the button below it, which connects to your LinkedIn profile, so I can view it. So I have your actual resume here, and in the ATS there's certain buttons that I can push that go out and find your LinkedIn profile, and I push the button and it pulls it up over here. And, sometimes they don't match. And I'm like, I wonder what's going on here. And it makes me question. So make it easier for the recruiter, right? We're just people trying to maximize their time. Match them up. Match them up. Have a good resume. If you've got, like you said, you got 4 or 5 different forms, maybe that's a challenge for you. Maybe you go in and you start to look at it. It's about building your personal brand and what that actually means. Do's and don'ts, quickly. Please do to your profile as your professional brochure, pictures of your dogs, things like that. Don't do it. I mean, know that it's a business place, right? Use your face, get good photography. I think they do a work once a year, maybe twice a year, where they do actually do photos here. That pays, for sure to have a really good photo for your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to blast through these real quick. Do choose your groups carefully. Make sure that you're in the right groups and not overly grouped. If so, you get a lot of chatter and then you become unfocused. Do be active in the groups. Post thoughtful response for most interesting discussions. So tailor your responses. Be sure to respond. Be active. Sometimes we're just a consumer. Let's be an active participant. Wow, I got both of those. Do get intentional testimonials and endorsements. So ask people to reference you. It's a good tool for LinkedIn. And do reach out and make meaningful connections. Don't be the person that just spams people. Make meaningful connections. If it's an industry or vertical connection, if it's hey, we worked this place together, or whatever it is, kind of link. Just it's LinkedIn, right? So link yourself and your experience and who you are back to that. Don't write a meaningful. Do write meaningful recommendations for others. That's how you get recommendations, by the way. Don't tout connections you don't know. You get busted every time. Don't be self-indulgent, because recruiters are the most connected people on the planet. So they're like, so you're connected so-and-so. What would they say about you? Be like, you're in an interview and it's a weird place to be, right? Don't be self-indulgent. Make sure that your content is not really obvious that you're trying to promote yourself. Gear it down a little bit and maybe stick that at towards the end. Don't spam. It seems pretty obvious, but just try not to spam your network. People will turn you off. Don't treat LinkedIn as a chore. So it is something that you have to make a little bit of time for, but it's not a chore. It's part of your personal and professional career to do this. It's becoming more and more because actually LinkedIn, there's other sites that are coming up that scrape LinkedIn. So it's not just that profile, it's all the others, man, that it's everything's becoming connected. So you want to make sure that you're actually putting out the stuff that matters. So we got 4 minutes. That's where I'm headed. When to apply and pass. Here's let's take some questions. You know what? Let's take some questions on when to apply. Oh yeah, that's right. I do need to go to that slide. Sorry. Why does God have me here right now? Everybody asked that question, so I came across a verse, 1 Corinthians 58. Therefore, my beloved brothers, and be steadfast and immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain. You know, does God participate? Does God call us to participate in a particular job or a type of work? Absolutely. Do we always want to put that in our own box? Absolutely. So biggest thing for me is I had to get out of my own head enough to understand that instead of going to work for a corporate America, I had to go open a business. That was something that was extremely, I was fearful. We always say fear is lack of faith, right? It increased my faith and increased my connections with God. It increased who I was as a Christian. So don't be scared to kind of reach out. If it's hey, I'm applying for jobs all day and I'm not getting anywhere, what's your prayer look like? Hey, God, what do you want out of me in this? Is it for me to be a consultant to help other people? Do I need to plug in and volunteer more? Because by the way, that's a good way to network. You got to ask yourself all those questions. How do we discern God's calling and guidance for the type of work that we're in? Honestly, nobody has the answer to that. It's a personal relationship with your Savior. And for me, highly important is my prayer daily is God and it was said perfectly in a prayer over here, less of me, more of you. It lets me understand and discern his will as it comes to me. I know people that are very good at this, and I know people like me that are very bad at it. So we like to hear ourselves talk in our own heads, but God is constantly fighting a battle there to try to get across. And sometimes we just have to rest and we have to listen. And that's so hard for a lot of us to do. Lastly, what are we sometimes missing? And there's a calling, there's a calling on each and every one of our lives, and it all goes back to discerning God's will. Go back over your time in work. Go back over your time in volunteering. Go back over the time that you spend with your family, your friends, and just understand, am I missing something there? What would you have me do with this situation? Take delight in everything that he puts you in and push on forward there. Look, Peter here is pretty powerful when he says this, and Paul back in Philippians, was it 4:8? He has a verse there that just tells you to think about the things that are positive, and I spoke a little bit about that. It's about a mindset. The things that are good, the things that are there, the things that are worthy of thinking about, the excellent things that Paul's talking about in that verse in Philippians is what you should have your mindset on, because if not, it comes across in your networking, it comes across in your interview, it comes across in your body language. Think about those things. Stay positive. Thank God for the time that you have right now, because it's going to change regardless. To wrap up with any questions? Quickly.
We have time. We got 3 hands up. Probably, I don't know that we have that much time.
It'll be very quick. I seen that, don't keep one resume, right? For me, maybe worked in multiple verticals and horizontal. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of time that, project management, program management, it is like even a single resume that, it could fit for many of the job.
Right.
So how that will be fit for, our professional, for my role, that project and program management.
Right. So those are broad fields, right? So you can do anything. It's about having a really good resume of being a program and project manager. And you can tailor it to a vertical depending on the job description. So that one resume can shift back and forth with a few keywords, with a few arrangements. It's fine. So I know it all too well. Is like you want to have several different versions. I want to have a tech version. I want to have supply chain. Just keep one, pivot it. Best I can tell you.
I, talk about our resumes matching our LinkedIn profile. Yet, every application is supposed to match the job. How do you reconcile
You-
differences between, before you said it, because it's you.
Great question. And I should have clarified. I know exactly what you're talking about. Your experience never changes. The experiences is your experience is your experience. That's what LinkedIn is looking for, is like, hey, tell us about where you worked and what your experience was there. That'll never change in your resume. Those are things that don't change. Your experience was your experience. Now, the keywords and what you've done, your skills and things like that, you can misplace, you can put them in different places, but your experience needs to match your experience on LinkedIn. That's what I was talking about. Experience-wise, right? And even skills-wise. If you get new skills, make sure it's on LinkedIn.
Just a quick question on the ATS tracking system. What's the best separator for the keywords?
The what
How's
now?
the best way to separate those keywords so they're not
Commas.
lumped together? Commas?
Yes.
Right,
If you
like
do bullets,
comma and
sometimes it incorporates a bullet.
Okay.
And then when you're doing Boolean, it'll cut off it. The operators are different. It just depends on how you search, but commas are the best way.
I like a comma and a space, and that's fine.
Comma space, just like a regular sentence. That's how it scans. Craig, I'm at your mercy. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's it. Thank you.